welcome everybody. It's our pleasure to be talking about this topic, which VantagePoint is known for, valued for, the area of data cleaning. We're going to really focus on these three areas of analysis. And before I get started, just Webb, do you have anything you'd like to just add?
Glad to be here and talk about something that VantagePoint has been doing for 20 years.
And one thing that I wanted to make sure, the Webb is instrumental in developing the algorithms, the fuzzy matching rule sets. He's the expert. So if you have, deep dive questions, we can try to approach those as well through the session. There's two data sources that are commonly used: patents, IP literature, and then scientific literature. And the three fields, the three data types that we're going to be spending time on happens to be the person's names, the inventor names, the author names, the assignee or affiliation organization names. And then at the end, we'll briefly touch on just cleaning up the NLP text. And that could be text from whatever's available in your data. And most commonly, it's title, abstracts, claims within the patents. It could more commonly in the literature, it's the title and abstract. But as you may be aware, whatever you can get into VantagePoint in terms of structured text and apply NLP, you can then apply our capabilities around cleaning to. So cleaning options, we're going to be talking, we're going to be demonstrating the cleaning options. This is the cleaning list cleanup dialog box where you pick a field. In this case, the author name field, the author name clean field is going to be the new field. We never overwrite fields. We just make new fields in our processes. And we've picked a fuzzy matching rule set, person's name, but there are a variety of fuzzy matching rule sets as listed here that you can find with the drop-down menu in this field. And a lot of what we have to share with you today is reasons for using one over the other, and some strategies on how that might improve your cleaning. There's the ability to, under the more options area, to use another field to verify your matches, and we'll get into that as well. And then the dual view cleanup confirmation window. This is something that was introduced into VantagePoint. I don't know, Webb, you probably know better than I do, probably 5 years ago with version 14, not 14, version 12, but in any event, it has a lot to it. There's a lot of items and elements within the dual cleanup window that the user can take advantage of that you may not be fully comfortable, fully aware of. We're going to, touch on the menu at the top. There's a lot of things in this menu that people can take advantage of to help with their cleaning. We're going to talk about the bar chart that is produced to allow you to gauge the degree of sets that you've produced and so forth. Are you using custom the custom view? It's something that might be of use to you in developing your top 10 list or your top 20 list. And then importantly, the dual windows, the windows that really are the same data on the left as it is on the right. They're synchronized. If you make a change in the data on the list on one side, it synchronizes and changes on the other side. You can drag and drop between the two, and then also importantly, you can view these lists using the viewing and then the drop down of the items, the combined, the not combined, and also the custom view. So this will be focused on as well. So with that in mind, let's go into VantagePoint and just talk about these capabilities. I have two data sets. This is the orexin data, the sleep molecule that I'm very interested personally to evaluate and to do research on in IP as well as scientific. And here's my PAT-based data. Again, I have to give credit to Mindsoft and for allowing us to use PAT-base. And then I've gone into the public data in PubMed and searched the topic of orexin molecules or the orexin receptor. So we'll start with the patent literature and begin the whole cleaning process. And that can be done in a number of ways, getting into the cleaning capability. You'll notice up in the Refined area, you'll see selecting on list cleanup, there's two options: list cleanup itself, which will take us into the cleaning dialog, or often just to be aware, you'll be able to resume a cleaning from this area, from this section, from this clicking on this element. So there's that available as well. I can do it here. If I pull it up, it'll ask me for fields, or if I can come down here, let's say I'd like to start looking at the assignee information. So I want to clean up the assignee name. And you'll notice I've actually kind of pre-work, I've removed the inventors from my assignee list. We can talk about that maybe towards the end for those of you who's interested in that. It's simply using list comparison to remove the inventors. And I'll just pull that into the list cleanup. So just here's what I say raw data. And right away, you can see the inconsistency. Here's Santa Fe Aventus, here's variations and so forth. If I just sort, you can see the inconsistency that the cleaning is going to tackle and make sets out of and combine these. So with the list open, I can go into list cleanup and open up the dialog box, versus if I just jump back over to the summary, right click and do list cleanup here, you'll notice it pulls me in as well. So several ways of getting into these functions that you'll discover when using VantagePoint. So again, the existing field, the new field that's going to be called cleaned, and because of it's a organization field, it's going to pick the fuzzy matching rule set for organization names. How does it know that? Basically based on the meta tags, as you'll see here in the background. But the drop down, we're going to, when we get into the scientific literature, we're going to talk about the advantages of using extract main or using ignore department. But typically within the patent literature, it's the organization names fuzzy matching rule set that one would use. So with that in mind, I'm going to click OK. I'm just looking here. You also can apply a thesaurus and run that ahead of time. Had you built thesaurus in previous cleaning, just bring that to your attention, and just click OK. So you'll notice here we have the dual window, the elements at the top. I'll touch on those as we go through the process. Just gauging the level of cleaning right away from the bar chart here, and noticing that of the 300, roughly a little over 300 items or names within the list, we were able to remove how many? Well, I can look down here, cleaned up 42 items. And those 42 items were combined into the sets that are represented by this area within the bar chart, and as well corresponds with the sets here. Some of them are collapsed, some of them aren't. And I'll just talk about that briefly, but just the other area of this bar chart, you'll see here the purple. The purple is just items that are in greater than one record, item per record, and there's 68 of those. And if I wanted to kind of understand what those items were, you can use the ability to filter using this filtering capability under viewing. So those items happen to be in the uncombined items. And you'll notice if I were to count each of these individually all the way down to greater than 1, that would equal to 68 items that were found to be not matching, that were basically individually the algorithm just identified them as unique. Going back to the all items area, and then this long trail. This long trail is just basically elements that are not contained within the, not found to match anything within these sets that the algorithm has used. So how can we use these these dual windows? Well, for example, is Merck Sharp and Dome complete? In other words, have I found all of the Merck elements or Merck items within this list? One way of doing that is on the right here is basically filtering. So if I just type in Merck, and you'll see right here, Merck and Company, Merck Frost Canada, Merck Sharp and Dome. Should these be part of Merck Sharp and Dome? Well, if I right click, you'll notice the ability in the drop down elements here to search Google. If I select Google, I can go over and see what Merck and Company is. And yes, lo and behold, Merck Sharp and Dome or MSD, they're the same. So that's a good thing to know. And I'm just going to toggle back into VantagePoint, the cleaning area, and take that and drag and drop. The same thing can be true here. I could search that as well. So that's just something to be aware of. If I close this out, and you'll notice my numbers have increased by a good bit. I had, I think, 69. Now I have 83 that have been contained together in this one set. How is it that some of them are plus and some of them are open or collapsed and some of them are exposed? It's simply the algorithm saying, you know, I've attempted to combine these elements under one name, but I'm not sure. So I'd like to show you what I've done. And so that's basically what it's doing. It's highly confident that these are the same, but not so sure with the Sanofi Aventis. So that's the other element within this cleaning area. Other things that you might want to take into consideration on deciding what is, you know, basically diminishing returns is how far down this list do you really want to clean? And you have to think about what is your actual goal? Do you only want to look at the top 10 assignees? Or is it that you want to be cleaning everything? So that's also just things to keep in mind. You might want to use the custom view to help you with building up your list of assignee names in this case. The custom view, if I just go in and change my view here to custom, it's asking what items would have a 50% match depending on what I select here. So Merck Sharp and Dome, once I've selected it, if I click, it's going to look for find close matches that are 50%. And you'll see that that's pretty much consistent with what's in the data. If I lower this, let's just take it down a notch to 25%. Select that, and we ended up bringing up the Frost Canadian. Maybe they belong in there. We can explore it, and let's just decide that they do belong. So that and you'll notice that the number didn't change, which indicates that they're probably Merck Sharp and Dome and Merck Canada or whatever is on the same document. Another way of exploring this is using a detail window. If I open up the detail window and add a detail window, you'll notice that if I bring this down, I can take my assignee name. So I'm an assignee. This is just basically looking at the additional fields. And I'm just going to take that same field and decide, yes, that's interesting. There is some Inventor data in here, but Merck Sharp and Dome, Merck and Company, they seem to be on the same documents together within this selection. Of Sanofi Aventis, if I select that, you'll notice Sanofi Aventis. But I also notice that there's Sanofi SA that isn't part of this, that if I just search Sanofi, whoops, I'm in my custom view. I'm going to go back to items, and lo and behold, there's all these others that the fuzzy matching rule set didn't pick up. So we're going to add those as well. Could there be possibly an Inventus all by itself? And lo and behold, there is an Inventus all by themselves, and I think they belong with Sanofi Aventis. So there's that as well, just taking the parts and searching them within the all items area. So there's a variety of different ways of giving you the information that you need to then decide how to consolidate. I want to talk a little bit about this area at the top, because it's just things that makes this a little easier in terms of deciding if you need to stop. You'll notice being able to save the session. I can save the session, or I can decide that I might want to change my auto save to more brief. If I select that right now, it's 5. I can change that down to 1 minute if I want, or I can increase it to 10. But if I just close this out and go over, you'll notice that when I load a saved session, it's going to give me the last 2. So if I go with every minute, I'll only have 1 or 2 minutes of last saved data. So things to think about. But if I do select this and click OK, it's going to basically take me back in time by 10 minutes here. So that's just very handy and useful in terms of how to, what to do if things, if you'd just like to start maybe making a change that you don't like. The other is the Thesaurus. Save as Thesaurus gives you the ability here to save it as Thesaurus, the same as linking at the bottom, but also Thesaurus options. You could have require exact match. In fact, we all recommend doing that. If not, you turn this off, then it's going to look for university across everything. It's going to look for Tokyo across, science across everything. So it's going to be too broad. So just keep that as it is. Renaming sets, I like this part because you'll notice they're always the default is to use the most frequent of the elements within the set, but you might want to decide to go with instead rename the sets based on the shortest. So if I go with shortest and then go rename the sets, it's just going to tell me it's going to do that. It'll give me the shortest, and this is all plays into planning ahead in terms of your graphics, items on a graph and so forth. You don't want to crowd in too long and so on within the ordinance or and so forth. So that's the renaming, and then the detail windows, as I already showed you. The other options is really just using regular expression. For those of you, you can change this window here for searching to a regular expression searching area. So that's that. If I were to save this as a thesaurus, you'll notice I'm going to basically, I already have my sleep molecule area here. I can merge it. You'll see the options of either merging or overriding. Merging helps you take a previous thesaurus that you've developed and grow it by merging the two and so on, or you can override it. So those are the two capabilities that you can use. We're going to cancel this now and just jump over to the literature area. If I just go over to the PubMed data and I'm going to go into the affiliation information, and I'm going to just pull them up. And there's a lot here, and show you the cleaning capability using extract main. So if I go into list cleanup and go with extract main, you'll notice that it's going to basically look at the main element within the affiliation, and whatever's consistent, decide on that as being your set item. So if we select that, take a minute. While we're doing this, Webb, is there anything that
I do
you
want
can
to.
add?
Webb is addressing a question that was answered. How does the cleaning algorithm determine its confidence level in terms of cleaning? Is it based on pre-coded rules in the cleaning strategy?
So that's going to be based on the number of shared tokens, bidirectional percentage. And when I say shared tokens, I'm talking about basically content words. So we've got an ignore list. It will ignore the of in University of Toronto. But once it is, determined what are the leftover words, it compares one set of words to the other set of words, and if that is over or averages the percentage each way, and that's the confidence level. So when you're dialing down that find close matches, that's what you're testing it against.
Okay.
Thank you.
So here we are. We're in the data that is been the fuzzy matching rule set is extract main, and just looking right away, the amount of cleaning that fuzzy matching rule set has done is pretty dramatic. But also you'll notice the green. The actual process is applying a thesaurus in the background. Webb could probably talk to that in more detail here in a second, but if I just open this up, and I'm now opening up the University of Tuskegee, and just looking down, what is University of Tuskegee, that this is the main element, and the other things that have been ignored, pieces of these affiliations have been ignored. And so you have this really consolidating all these variations into one main name here that it's extracted. Webb, if you can talk a little bit about the whole idea of the thesaurus, it might help them understand it better.
So there's two kinds of thesaurus. The most important kind of thesaurus is the thesaurus that you've made at the end of a previous list cleanup. And so if you apply this, that was that checkbox and option at the end of the list cleanup menu, it will say that you, the analyst, have already determined that these two things should go together. And that's why it will give it green. Let's see. Yep. That box. Check that box and pick your thesaurus file and the little drop down below it. And so that's where you have, as an analyst, have determined these two organizations or inventors or words go all together. What the extract main does is run a script beforehand that builds a thesaurus, and that thesaurus looks through the long string of the affiliation and breaks it up by each comma with each section with a comma, and then says which of these looks like a organization name, and it'll look for keywords like corporation or university or college or school or hospital, limited. It's got a long ranked list of words that it goes and looks for, and when it finds one of those, it says this, barring other complications, this section is probably the main name of that organization. And so then everything with that main name gets renamed, put into a thesaurus, which is why they're all marked in green as having been combined by a thesaurus.
Great. So, it's not foolproof. We want to, qualify this. It's, but it's very helpful. You can look through these and decide, for example, gee, this particular item, maybe not so, and you can right click and you can remove it from the set. So there's that flexibility that you have. But I just wanted to show you that function within the cleaning capabilities. So we'll cancel out of here and just kind of jump over into looking at the cleaning of inventors and using maybe a third field and so forth. So I'm going to unfilter this. I'm just going to look for inventors and look for inventor names and open them up and then apply a cleaning capability. So let's clean up. And you'll notice here, again, it's defaulted to the basically the most commonly used fuzzy matching. But let's go with the very aggressive. And you may have discovered in the past that if you select this, it's going to tell you it needs a verification field. This is so aggressive. So let's pick that field. And typically it's an affiliation field. So, or in this case, assignee. So we're going to pick the assignee name. Now I'm going to go with just my standard names, but I'm going to also use a fuzzy matching rule set. So which fuzzy matching rule set do I want to use? I'm going to go with my organization name and then use that to help match. So what is it doing? It's looking at a name and comparing it to another name and saying, these look very similar, but oh, lo and behold, that first name is at a different company versus the second company. But are those two companies similar by using this organization fuzzy matching rule set? And so it's actually deciding whether those companies are similar by using this particular fuzzy matching rule set. So there's a lot going on there, but it can be quite helpful in terms of mainly cleaning up individuals, inventors, and so on. So just selecting this, and it gives you back these results. Now, some of them are I just noticed just in working with data in preparation for the session, the DeFosa, it's not quite picking up these variations in spelling. And Webb, you might qualify these this fuzzy matching rule set and kind of help them understand why that might be the case.
Well, I mean, so you can call it, different spellings in different languages, typos, OCR errors, whatnot. Sometimes there is a word distance that gets calculated, and even our very aggressive name matching is still fairly conservative when it comes to word distance. So they can be off by maybe one letter, but not more than that. We deal with enough short Asian names that being two letters off will give you a completely different name.
That's very tricky. Korean Kims all over the place.
Right. So it's even our very aggressive is still pretty conservative.
Okay, so that's using it in that environment. If I just close this out and click yes, let's go back over and see how it helps us with the authors. And if I go with the author name, select that and go into my list cleanup and just try the very aggressive. So person's name, I want very aggressive. But here I'm going to pick under more options, affiliation, but I'm going to use extract domain and see how that might help me. So you can see how that can be useful here in this instance. And so, just another way of just helping you with these, I'm just looking down this list. This, for example, is an interesting pull together, and so on. And again, do I want to know the shortest or the longest by renaming my sets and so on? So just close out here and just briefly touch on cleaning up lists of terms and so on. If I jump back over to the set, the summary sheet, I'm going to close this out. I have my NLP phrases here that I can then pull into the list cleanup. But now it's just using the general. So you'll notice the general fuzzy matching rule set. Select that. It's mainly looking at plurals, and it's a very long list, so it's going to take a little time. But here you can see at least some of this. Now, we now have, the NLP Refined, which does a variety of additional cleaning functions. Webb, I don't know if you can share with the group those elements that are.
Those are documented in our in the help file for the cleanup, but basically it starts with this kind of cleanup, a fuzzy cleanup that does stemming, plural matches, tense matches, etc. And then goes on and uses a series of different, basically stop words list to pull out common words, common chemical names, things like that. But it all starts with this core stemming based cleanup.
So if I'm just going to accept this, would you like to do so? It's asking me to make a Thesaurus. No, but I'm going to basically make this clean list. Let's just do some comparison here. I'm going to, this is the previous list, just looking at numbers, consolidation and so forth. But I now have, if I look at my NLP Refined list, just here you can see how it's been consolidated down. And you'll notice the variations are much less within the refined, and there's a lot of just additional processing that really gives you a list of terminology that's useful to work with. So that's about it. We'll just kind of wrap it up here and see if there's any questions or anything that anybody would like to share.
If I'll say, just to reiterate the point that Rick made at the very beginning, the key with cleanup is to know going into the process, what is your goal? If the report you're generating is going to be a set of top 5 lists, top 10 lists, that sort of thing, then you're really going to try and clean down well the top, maybe 15, just as long as clean far enough past the top 10 that the next one you clean is not likely to jump into your top 10. And at that point you can stop. That's not really that difficult of a cleanup job, but can be done very quickly. Even more specifically, if you are making the kind of competitive report, or it's a specific industry report and you've got your list of 10 to 15 companies, then you can just focus on just those in that cleanup menu and use the filtering to type and use the find similar matches to go through and really clean up just those organizations or vendors that you're interested in. On the other hand, if you are doing a comprehensive cleanup and you're going to be handing off this data set and it needs to be completely cleaned, all duplicates removed from top to bottom, in that case, I would say go ahead and just start by expanding all. I guess that's one of the options in the right-click menu of the cleanup. So even the things that VantagePoint is confident in, go ahead and double check them. Sort it alphabetically, since you're going to go through everything anyway, and then just work your way down the list, collapsing items as you go to indicate that they have been reviewed by you, and move on. And this is where, sometimes that's just the kind of report you have to do. And this is where these saved cleanup sessions come in really handy, because you might start that at 3 p.m. and you are still going when it's time to go home. And so it is really nice to be able to save your cleanup session and shut it down and be confident that it will still be there tomorrow and IT hasn't rebooted your computer overnight. So it's very helpful to know in advance what your cleanup goal is before you get into this. Other than
Great.
that, I would say, because the cross field matching in a Inventor cleanup is usually dependent on affiliations, you're using affiliations as the crosscheck field. It's generally advantageous to clean up the affiliations field first when you're going into a data set.
That's
Yeah.
great. I don't know whether if you have, either of you have taken a look at the Q&A boxes, and that actually
Let's
was
see.
a
Now for the
question.
official questions.
Well, that was question one, if you want to just reiterate that.
Yeah, so that was, I think that addressed Justin's question. If I would want to clean the verification fields like organization before author inventor fields. Yes, having a very good, very well cleaned inventor field helps as a verification field. Now, deduplicating in list cleanup. Oh yes. So particularly with Scopus is getting better, but particularly with PubMed, they've been getting bad at parsing their organization names. And so a lot of times, even though each one is supposed to have its own entry, they'll throw some semicolons in the list, or it'll be University A and University B all written out on one line, and you need to break that up and kind of count it twice. This is where a new feature in just the past version comes in handy. It's called clone item. So I guess as Rick is about to demonstrate here, what clone item does. Oh, don't extract main in this case. We want our nice dirty. Well, because it doesn't really matter. We can always find a nice dirty one. I would say type and in one of the filter boxes. And that'll help us find something that's been double counted. So maybe not in that first one. All right. The idea is we find one of the items that's already been cleaned in a set, and then we will maybe try searching for and space. That cut it down. Oh, well, and it's being clever and recognizing ampersands for Merck and Company. The idea is you clone the item, and basically this will just make a copy of it, and you put one copy into one version of that set into the one that it's already in. And when you clone it, another version of it will be popped out at the bottom of the list in the uncombined sets. And then you can copy that into whichever one you want. So that's the, I guess, deduplicating or multi-deduplicating, or actually, I guess you are duplicating. That would be how you can use duplicating, how you can make the data set dirtier to make it cleaner.
So I just cloned this. I thought, where did it go?
So it is now one of the Department of Clinical Pharmacology. It's now down in that uncleaned list of uncombined items. So right now you've got it filtered on the left is combined items. Or on the right-hand side, you could filter to uncombined items and, type Department of Clinical Pharmacology. And there it is. The third item in that list.
So if you create a thesaurus, will the duplicated item be under each?
And yes, so if
Yeah.
you create a thesaurus, then you'll have that duplicated item underneath both top level items. And there's some, if you go through a thesaurus cleanup process, the thesaurus will then kind of, it's designed to combine things into one item, and it's going to ask you, hey, are you sure about this? Because I found this one thing and it's in both of these top level items. Do you want to keep it in both? And your answer in that case is yes. And so when applying that thesaurus in the future, I guess to go back to the previous webinar on thesauruses, you'll need to allow multiple matches. And allow a sub item that's matched in more than one top item to go into both. But that's an option in thesaurus files, and